Hey, what's going on today, guys? Alex Boots here, founder of Resonant Impact Systems. We help MSPs, MSSPs, IT channel partner businesses build pipeline, book qualified businesses who are looking for IT solutions to meet them. And we also fix broken things in their sales department, help train their sales team, etc. We actually just finished a successful consulting engagement over most of this year with an MSP. We're able to 4x their discovery meetings bookings per month. We're able to train their sales team and refine their managed services offering to better market fit. That was a lot of fun. Today, we're going to talk about more on prospecting. Prospecting, as we went over in the first part of this last week, it is the lifeline of your business. It is the future. If you're not constantly prospecting, then your pipeline will dry up in a matter of weeks. For me, it was always a 4-week lag. I was also, when I was an MSP salesperson, I went out and I found all my own deals. I didn't have any marketing help. So it was kind of a feast or famine situation where I would bring in deals through various prospecting channels, and then I would work to close those deals, and my prospecting would slow down. It would normally take 3 to 4 weeks of slower prospecting when my for my pipeline to actually just dry up completely, and then the amount of effort that it takes to actually get the pipeline going again is out of proportion to the effort that it would have taken to simply just continue those actions in prospecting. Last week, we went over various things about that. We went over the mindset that it takes to keep prospecting, the 7 pillars of successful prospecting. So if you did not catch that, you should you should watch the part 1 video that is in my library. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we are going to talk further about the data-driven approach to prospecting. So if I just, back this up a couple slides, this is lesson 2, data diligence. I made it analogous to you either have a murky river when you're out prospecting for gold, or you have a nice clean river. If you are not guiding your prospecting actions according to data, then you are basically flying blind. Now, is it quality or is it quantity? I think there definitely is some contention out there as to volume outbound is dead. If it's a numbers game, you sound like an old school boiler room. Like this isn't the 80s anymore kind of thing. It's all about quality, targeted, very specific outreach. I would say that it's actually somewhere in the middle of those two things. Let me put it this way. If you don't have volume, it really doesn't matter the quality of the outreach that you have. There's 8 billion people on this planet. There's a fraction, your total addressable market is going to be a percentage point of that. That is a lot of people, really, for almost any industry, unless you're extremely niche driven. If you don't have the numbers, you're simply not going to reach the amount of people. And for whatever reason, you know, you have to have numbers because for that person, especially in IT services, for them to be in a position to be a sales qualified opportunity, you have to hit them in their buying window. You have to find the right persona in their buying window with the right budget. And then they have to like you and you have to like them. And you have to have the right fit service wise, what they're looking for. So there's a lot of things that have to line up. You are simply not going to go out into the market and find the gyms and only the gyms with super, super high quality targeted outreach. And that's it. You have to have numbers. The flip side of that is sign up with some AI tool that pushes out 1,500 LinkedIn messages a month, 15,000 cold emails a month. I would venture to say you're not going to get great results with that, especially if you're letting the AI write the messages and you're not even proofing the messages or putting your own voice into the messages, people absolutely hate hearing from robots. So that's really not going to work very well. So you kind of have to find a happy medium there. And you really have to track very, very heavily your data and prospecting, the amount of people you've reached out to, the amount of leads that you've gotten, the amount of emails you've sent, calls that you've made, prospects that you've found are kind of the main numbers there. This was one of my actual graphs. I'm comparing over about a 3-month term here, calls to appointments. You'll see really a direct correlation. They almost line up exactly. The amount of calls determines the amount of appointments. Now, if this was not a primarily quantity game, you would not see the level of similarity between these two graphs that you would see. I mean, it almost follows exactly. Look at this dip over here. Look at this dip here. Look at this little bit of a rise in the middle, and look at a little bit of this rise right after that. Look at this peak here, and look at this peak here. Look at this slight downtrend over the course of some weeks, and look at this downtrend here. If you actually monitor your calls and your appointments, I promise you, you will actually see the same analogous information in your graphs. So, know your numbers. At one point in time, these were my numbers as a IT service business development rep for an MSP I was up in Columbus, Ohio at the time. It took me 50 calls to find one lead. One lead I defined as somebody who showed some kind of interest. We don't know they're a prospect yet because they haven't been qualified, but they agree to a meeting. They say they might be looking. They ask you good questions. Where are you guys located? What are your price? Things like this. This all indicates a lead. Now, 14 pop-ins. Pop-ins is basically an in-person drop, a cold in-person visit. I did a lot of those. The methodology that I used, it has its own methodology. You know, you're not just going out to strip malls and going up anywhere and dropping in on any and all businesses. I targeted a very specific type of commercial office space, but I was very successful in doing that. I had a very laid back pattern that I would do, and it's prospecting work. You know, you're going out. It's like you're going to the well, maybe not quite, but I was gonna say like going to the saloon and asking around, hey, does anybody know where the last guy struck gold? Because on these drop-ins, when you can get into conversations with the receptionist or people in these offices, you can ask questions. Hey, you know, is there anyone in this office space that you know has had IT trouble? Anyone in any one of your associates, maybe some friends that work at other companies that could use the type of help that I'm describing? You can actually do live prospecting work, but the point is that when you're in person communicating with somebody, there is just so many things about that dynamic that you cannot get in any other way. The closest thing that you can get to that would be a Zoom meeting or Teams meeting with the video on. And right behind that would be an actual phone call. But an in person dialogue is really cream of the crop for being able to establish a rapport and do the best prospecting work. It took me 14 cold in-person office visits to reliably get a read, and that number was shockingly accurate. If I went out for the day and I went through a commercial office building and I was at, you know, 13 in-person visits, I knew it was gonna take one more. You know, there was some variance, maybe 1 or 2 more, but I knew it was just a handful more, and I would get a lead, and sure enough, I would get a lead after on that next office visit. And even if I would go out and, let's say, get 2 or 3 leads on an office visit, that would actually regress to the mean. So the next 28 office visits, I would get no leads. So the data doesn't lie. You have to know your numbers in order to be successful. It would take me 17 calls to get an appointment. Now, this one here was very, very important. This is qualified deals in the pipeline. Another term you might use for this is a sales qualified lead or an active sales opportunity. Basically, a prospect that you can work on right now. So it's not somebody who is saying, "Yeah, next month, next year I might be looking. Hey, we're just looking around and window shopping." But it is someone who says, "Yeah, we're actively looking right now." Now, it would take me 2 leads to get one qualified prospect, meaning they have budget, they're in the right industry, I'm talking to the right person. Now, maybe that buying window may be in the future, but it is a qualified prospect in the sense that this person could buy from me at some point. It would take me 2 leads to get that. It would take me 5 leads to get a qualified prospect in the pipeline or on the board, actively being worked on in that month where you're really able to progress that deal. So it'd actually take me 5 leads just to get one person that would be on the board. It would take me 4 qualified prospects in the pipeline actively being worked on to get one closed MSP deal. It's about a closing rate of 25%. I think towards the end of that tenure as a BDR, that closing rate did get higher. Now, keep in mind, this is pure outbound leads. This is not getting super warm inbound leads. This is just going out, prospecting, working referral groups, etc., which I will get to be able to get those numbers. And that was also shockingly accurate. I knew if I had 4, one of those was going to close in that given month. Lesson 3, the prospector's journey, unearthing opportunities. There are 2 forms of prospecting. I actually got this terminology from a book by Jeb Blunt. It was called AI Prospecting, basically AI in Sales. I have to find the name of the title, but it was a phenomenal book about the use of AI in sales. And he breaks down 2 forms of prospecting. You have synchronous prospecting and asynchronous prospecting. When you're on LinkedIn and you're being hit up as a B2B business about all the different types of AI tools, cold email tools, LinkedIn messages, video messages, or direct mail, even social media content, what that all falls under is asynchronous communication. These are communications that you can make in one point of time, and then in another point of time, they are viewed or consumed by somebody else. That has its own numbers, it has its own efficacies. The other side is you have synchronous prospecting, which is the best kind of prospecting, an in-person meeting, phone call, live messaging, like if you're going back and forth on a LinkedIn chat with somebody or a Facebook Messenger, in-person networking, or even virtual networking and live webinars where you have people actually engaging with you. Those are the best because, well, it's people talking to people in real time. You can really demonstrate value. You can address a person's concerns or past experiences with bad IT in an active play by play way where you don't have to put out a message and wait for somebody to respond, where most of the time they don't respond. So, really, what you want to be doing as an IT salesperson, account executive, BDR, whatever, you want to spend out of your prospecting time, most of your time on synchronous prospecting. That means picking up the phone. That means going to networking meetings, showing up to places, showing up at offices. This is the best bang for your buck. It costs you very little to do this. It costs you gasoline to go travel somewhere in your own time. Whereas, things like, LinkedIn messaging, some of the asynchronous, like you have to have tools to do that, cold email systems, LinkedIn professional, things like that. Like, for example, if you're going to do asynchronous cold email, if you've looked into doing that, you'll see the amount of infrastructure that you have to set up. The amount of infrastructure that you have to set up and the things that you have to know is quite robust. I'm not saying that cold email costs so much money, but it definitely costs more money than picking up the phone because you can get a business phone number and you can make dials on, fractions of a penny on the minute to do outbound dialing. And you can get a list from just about anywhere. So spend most of your time on synchronous prospecting, but asynchronous definitely has its place. It has its place in follow up, it has its place in marketing, it has its place in being able to cast a wide net, getting visibility, getting brand recognition. One thing that is beneficial of doing things like LinkedIn content in some industries is that your face becomes familiar to other people. They feel like they know you. You're showing up on their, they're sitting in their office or in their living room, scrolling on their phone on their couch, and there you are in the screen. They almost feel like you're in their house, kind of thing. So, social media content, funnels, pre-recorded webinars, content. You should be doing stuff like that, but you should, in my opinion, you should be spending most of your time on synchronous communication or using the asynchronous to get identities and then ending them with synchronous communication. Now, there's that vein of gold. Our vein of gold are identities, are qualified buyers. In order to find those veins of gold, you need to know what problem does your product or service solve. I know that seems very, very simple, but in the IT solutions business, you'll commonly find an area of pain for MSPs or sales teams, and that is trouble translating their technical value into a business outcome. I actually did a really cool exercise with a group of about 5 sales development reps where I took, it was with a managed service provider, managed security services provider. So we took every single we wrote down every single technical outcome that we could bring from implementing our solution. So, protecting endpoints, training users on cybersecurity, fixing computer issues, maintaining hardware, procuring new hardware, like every type of thing. And then we took that and then we made a second column where we translated that into a business outcome. It was a very interesting and enlightening exercise. And what we found is every single technical outcome that we deliver from, freeing up space on a hard drive to fixing somebody's Outlook client to ordering new switches and hardware and getting them a new updated firewall licenses and configuring their firewalls correctly. Like every single thing that we do translates to a business, couple things in business outcomes. Increased employee productivity on the part of a client. And so thereby increased revenue because their employees are more productive and revenue protection, protecting their assets. And that's really the cyber risk and cybersecurity, process that we do. But they all kind of led to those 3 roads. You have to know, what is your EDR, MDR solution? What problem does that really solve? And you need to really walk it down for yourself, challenge yourself, make yourself walk it down all the way to be able to explain to a CFO or office administrator at a law firm what outcome should they be expecting and what problem are we exactly going to solve for them. Then you have to find out who has those problems. So, people in the legal industry often have problems with integrating their like case management or document management solutions with the rest of their environment. That might not be the same case for, real estate offices or banks. So there's absolutely um, different problems for different verticals that you should know about. And this really goes to really identifying your ideal customer profile. And that is not just what vertical am I going after. That's what people do I want to talk to? What kind of problems do they have? When are they buying windows? What size company? What budgets? What kind of engagement am I targeting? Like, What kind of stakeholder engagement is in my ideal customer profile? Am I engaging with the decision maker directly, or maybe I'm talking to the champion and then getting the decision maker involved? Like, you really have to flesh out the business outcomes that you bring as an MSP, and then who are those people who would benefit most from those business outcomes? And then where are they located? What networking events can you find them? What people can you network with that are closest to those identities, who sell solutions to those identities already? And those become your power partners in a referral based relationship. So, what my best power partner was a telecommunications rep who sold into similar businesses that I did. We're going to go over more on that later, but you have to know, where are they located? Where do they congregate? Are there Facebook groups that you can access them? Are there contact lists that you can get, enrichment lists that you can get? Call them, email them, drive to them. Where are they? And then I guess I kind of already talked about, how do I reach them effectively? Some people are going to respond better to phone than others. I found that calling up people in healthcare clinics can be a little bit difficult to reach the main doctor in charge of IT, whereas calling up a law firm and talking to the office administrator is a bit easier. Or, if we're talking healthcare, like smaller clinics, like smaller chiropractic clinics, are obviously easier just to call and get the main person than it is to call a, uh, you know, uh, 8 office primary care physician business. Now, some respond to email better. Now, I think the jury's kind of still out on cold email. I have not found cold email or email that isn't already with a person that you're engaged with to be very effective. I have found going to see them directly, or networking with people that already know them, or calling them directly, to be the best ways to reach them. Now, cold prospecting, 50% of my leads actually came from this channel. And I think, guys, this will probably be the last slide that we cover for today. 50% of my leads came from cold prospecting. Now, the other 50% came from referral groups, still, not super warm inbound leads, stuff that I had to drum up, but not necessarily cold calling or just cold dropping in on somebody. So, cold calling and cold drop ins were the best form of this. My largest prospect actually came from a cold email. I know I was just talking down cold email. Came from a cold email that a partner of mine sent, and it turned out to be an $8 million hardware deal. And it's funny, I put my commission here. I got a nice commission on that. That was a great day. It was really cool to see that. Really, the thing with cold prospecting is that you control your destiny. And that is the thing. It's not necessarily, oh my gosh, it's the most effective way to reach somebody. It's just that, what are you going to do? Are you just going to sit around for people to reach out to you, or just wait for referrals? You put your fate into your own hands. Go out and do something effective today in order to produce the results that you're looking for tomorrow. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. I'm going to go ahead and end off, because it makes a little more sense timing wise to break this up into the next live that I do next week. But I'm Alex Booth, Resident Impact Systems. Thanks so much for coming today.